I retired early at 65 because I believed something that YouTube kept telling me over and over again, that if you had around $2,000 a month, you could move to the Philippines and live like a king. So I looked at my Social Security, I looked at my small pension. Together it came out to about $2,100 a month, and I convinced myself that I had finally found the solution to a retirement that simply did not work in the United States. For months I watched video after video of beautiful beaches, cheap meals, and happy expats drinking beer by the ocean. Everywhere I looked, the message sounded the same. Life here was incredibly affordable. Your money stretched much further than in America, and retiring here could turn a modest income into a comfortable life. So I did something that felt exciting at the time, but now feels incredibly reckless. I sold most of what I owned, packed 2 suitcases, told my family I was starting a new life in Southeast Asia, and boarded a one-way flight to the Philippines. 6 months later, I was completely broke and moving back to the United States to live in my sister's spare bedroom. The crazy part is that I was not scammed. I did not send money to anyone. I did not even date anyone because I had heard those stories, and I thought avoiding that would keep me safe financially. The truth is, I went broke for a much simpler reason. I came here and lived like I was on vacation. Before moving to the Philippines, the numbers for retirement in the United States simply did not make sense anymore. Even though I worked most of my life and paid into the system, my Social Security combined with a small pension only gave me about $2,100 a month to live on. My rent alone was already over $1,400 a month, and by the time you added groceries, car insurance, gas, utilities, and basic expenses, there was almost nothing left at the end of the month. That was when I started searching online for alternatives, and that is when I discovered the endless number of videos about retiring in the Philippines. Every video seemed to confirm the same idea. If you had around $2,000 a month, you could live comfortably here, maybe even better than you ever did in the United States. Eventually, I convinced myself that if I moved overseas, my retirement problem would disappear. So, at 65 years old, I made the decision to retire early and start over in the Philippines. The first mistake I made was something I did not even realize at the time. I arrived in the Philippines treating it like a long vacation instead of a place where I needed to build a realistic monthly budget. During the first month, everything felt exciting and new, so instead of finding a simple apartment and settling into a routine, I stayed in hotels while traveling around different cities trying to decide where I wanted to live. These were not luxury resorts, but they were still nice hotels costing around $90, sometimes even $110 per night. At the time, it did not feel expensive because I kept seeing the prices in pesos, 5,000 pesos here, 6,000 pesos there. When you see numbers like that, it does not immediately feel like real money if you're used to thinking in dollars. What I did not realize was that by the end of my first month, I had quietly spent more than $2,700. That was already more than my entire monthly income. Another mistake I made was something that happens to a lot of people when they first arrive here. Everything feels cheap compared to the United States, so it becomes very easy to justify spending more than you normally would. I started eating out almost every day because restaurants felt affordable. Instead of cooking or buying local food, I often ordered Western meals because they reminded me of home. At night, I would meet other expats for drinks and conversation. Those evenings usually turned into several beers, maybe some bar food, and sometimes a late ride back to the hotel. Then there were weekend trips. Someone would suggest visiting another island or taking a ferry somewhere interesting. Suddenly, I was paying for boat tours, island hopping trips, transportation, and more hotel nights. Each individual expense did not seem that large. 800 pesos, 1,200 pesos, 1,500 pesos. But when you convert those numbers back into dollars and multiply them by weeks and months, those small purchases start turning into very big numbers. One of the strangest things about living in another country is how quickly your brain stops recognizing the real value of money when everything is in a different currency. In the United States, I instantly know what spending $50 feels like. But when I was spending 2,500 pesos or 3,000 pesos in the Philippines, it did not trigger the same warning signal in my mind. So I kept pulling money out of ATMs, paying for things, without carefully converting the numbers back into dollars. It felt like I was spending smaller amounts than I actually was, until the day I logged into my bank account and realized my savings were dropping much faster than I expected. By the fourth month, the excitement started fading. Reality started replacing it. I finally sat down and looked closely at my spending. That was when I understood something that many of the videos I watched never explain clearly. The Philippines can absolutely be affordable if you live a simple and disciplined lifestyle, but it can also become surprisingly expensive if you live like a tourist every day, if you rent a modest apartment, cook at home sometimes, eat local food, and avoid constant travel. $2,000 a month can work, but if you stay in hotels, eat Western food regularly, drink every night, and travel frequently, that same amount of money disappears incredibly fast. By the sixth month, my savings had dropped to a point where I could no longer ignore the situation. Suddenly, the adventure that once felt exciting started feeling stressful. There is nothing relaxing about watching your bank account shrink while you are thousands of miles away from home. But that was when I realized something I wish I had thought about before moving. Running out of money in another country is one of the worst feelings you can experience. So I made a decision that was extremely difficult for my pride, but necessary for my future. I booked a flight back to the United States. Looking back now, I do not blame the Philippines, and I do not even blame the YouTube videos that inspired me to move here. Most of those creators were simply showing the best parts of their lives: sunsets on the beach, cheap meals, beautiful scenery, happy moments. What those videos rarely show are the boring but important parts of living anywhere in the world: budgeting, tracking expenses, planning long-term finances, and understanding how easily lifestyle choices can change your monthly costs. If I could do everything over again, I would approach the entire decision very differently. Instead of moving immediately, I would spend several months living here first to understand what everyday life actually costs. I would track every single peso I spent, so I always understood the true value of my money. And most importantly, I would build a realistic lifestyle that fits my income, instead of trying to live the life I saw in highlight videos online. Because the truth is, the Philippines can still be an amazing place to retire, but only if you treat it like real life. Instead of a permanent vacation,